the body is a Kundalini activation.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So it's, everybody thinks Kundalini is the root chakra and has to do with sexuality. Well, it hit me in the neck and, right at the top of the spine. So Kundalini can come through anywhere along the spine, along that chakra pathway.
Right. Wow. That is something. That's something else. And so, yeah,
I got to live.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I wonder if and now could you speak during that time so people didn't know that you had passed away? I mean, I always wonder what that would be like to be so paralyzed that that people bury you alive or something. I mean, it wasn't in that. Could you move your head and speak and things?
Nobody came to see me. At first, there was somebody with me, but I needed to be alone. I needed to just be alone with it. So I was left alone.
Wow. And I bet you that in those 3 days you really did come to terms with a lot of different things. I would imagine that you were terrified that this was going to be the permanent state that you were going to be living in.
I was actually quite steady. I just was really steady with that little speck of light, and just focus on the light. And that's why I use light. I'm always talking about white light because it saved me. It saved my life twice. First, when Angel Michael came in, saved me with his light, and then this was a second savior. Light is my savior.
Right. Isn't that amazing that it's a funny thing when you transpose, and I'm glad you said that you were very calm about it and such, because a lot of times if you're a listener or you're the host of the radio show, then you think, oh man, what would I do in that situation? Because I've never been in that particular situation. I have had a somewhat similar thing, and that's why I asked you if you had any pain involved with it, because one time I was in Idaho and I thought somebody shot me in the back of the head. I mean, it was it was just like it just felt like the back of my head exploded in, just hot pain. And I was in the hospital for 3 days, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me either, other than they thought I had some neurological problems. But then whenever I came home, they did all these extra MRIs and things like that and couldn't actually figure it out either. So, I mean, that was one of those things where I thought, man, oh man, I've never felt anything like that before. So that's why I was just wondering by that. But I was genuinely scared that, that I was going to be in this, kind of crippled state for forever. But I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that, sometimes I can be a very anxious person, and and a lot of people say, well, it doesn't seem like you're like that, but there's certain times whenever you could see me and you could see, wow, this guy is all over the place, and that has a lot to do with the fact that I have some PTSD and things like that, but and that's very, very hard to deal with whenever you're in your reptilian brain. Well,
I had Angel Michael was with me.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that. That made all the difference.
Yeah.
And still, it makes all the difference in my life.
Right.
And we all have angels. Everyone has angels.
Well, yeah.
No one's special.
Right.
I was at a talk at a church with my book, and someone came up to me, oh, I wish I had an angel. You're so lucky. I said, I don't want to portray that. I want you to know that you have an angel. You are an angel. And in fact, I tell people, and in my book, we are angel human. We have wings. I experienced the activation of my wing chakra, and we do have a wing chakra.
Mm-hmm.
And it's connected to our throat and our heart.
Right.
We are angelic beings.
Right. And I think that's
nobody seems to hear that. It's like, for me, it's like, wow.
Well, but I think that the thing about it is, Patricia, we sometimes think that these things happen to other people. When they tell the story, people get very, very interested in the story, and then even if it's a even if it's a good story or it's a bad story, or people get very envious of the fact that this has happened to other people, even if it's a terrifying story. And I'm not saying that you have a terrifying story to tell, but it's one of those things where people seem to believe these things only happen to other people, and so. How would you suggest that if somebody had wanted to search out or find who their guardian angel is, or who's looking after them, or who's around them? How would you suggest that people maybe tap into that? Is there a certain method that you use? And I know you said you use meditation, but is there other things that you do, like let's say drumming or any other different types of things?
Yeah, right. I can after my paralysis experience, I had a lot going on in my brain. I would hear and feel different neurons firing, clicking. I say neurons, I don't know for sure, but there was just a lot going on in my head. And I think it's my crown chakra. I'm just really attuned to it. And so when I drum, something clicks in my head, and it's like an attunement. It just shifts into place. So I definitely tell people to drum, to rattle, sing, chant, get in nature, ask angels to come in, ask for guidance, go within, and listen. We've got to be still. And I think we have to be uncomfortable, be in some misery before we look within. Mm-hmm. I think it's just our ego nature.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people don't necessarily realize that that also is part of entering into a sort of a altered state. And there's different ways to do it. And I think even if you look at biblical sources to say how did people enter into altered states and things like that, a lot of that had to do with starvation or lack of sleep or different types of things like that, where you enter into this period of time where your brain starts to function in a different way. Obviously, that's one of those things where, and I'll make this proviso: if you're going to do something like try to starve yourself for 4 days or 5 days or something like that, or try to keep yourself up for 5 days at a time, understand that these are one of those things where you should be having somebody monitor you as well. Don't just try to do that by yourself, where I'm going to stay up for 5 days, because you don't want to enter into like a sleep psychosis or something like that.
Yeah. Well, fasting is a good one too.
Yes.
Just going without food for a while, you feel a lot lighter. But it's all about brain waves. Our beta brainwave is...
Right.
You okay?
Yeah, I just coughed there. Yeah.
Okay. Beta brainwave is our ordinary reality, and when you can get those brainwaves into alpha and theta and delta, and it's very scientific. This isn't really a mystery. It's just shifting our brainwaves, our frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we can connect with the aliens and light beings, is just shift our frequency, get out of this ordinary ego-driven, busy beta brainwave.
Right. So you again believe that it's the sort of the material world that's holding a lot of people back from experiencing the sort of etheric world, or the astral world.
I heard the other day that we're trapped in matter. We're trapped in dark matter. We're trapped. We're not trapped if we can access different frequencies, if we can get out of the illusion that this is all there is in this physical material world. No, I think of it as a one spectrum of energy from dark dense matter to pure light.
Mm.
And it's one whole circle.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that that's sort of been the theme on Gary's shows this week, as well as my show yesterday and today, is this whole idea of breaking away or shifting consciousness to a higher vibration, to sort of see different types of beings. And it is interesting that and I often wonder if this is why children, for example, seem to experience ghosts and talk about past lives and see fairies and aliens and Bigfoot and things like that. And I know that my wife Sam saw an angel when she was a child, when she was very, very sick, and she felt that really had helped her. But it's one of those things where when you come back into the into the sort of the real world and you're well, and people say, well, what did you see, or what did you experience while you were sick, or you imagined it, or this is not really what's happening, and and children, for example, who have imaginary friends, quote unquote imaginary friends, or it's time to grow up and stop doing that. So is that something that happened to you as a child too, or was or was it just really you started with your experience at 23 or 25?
As a child, I spent a lot of time in the woods, and I spent a lot of time alone, and I was somewhat of a peacemaker. So I think I came in with a lot of heart. I think I came in as a gentle soul, and as I think just being in the woods had an amazing impact on my soul. And after I got so depressed and so lost, I just hit bottom, and that was my salvation.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to say one other thing about angels.
Absolutely.
And that is, one night my ex-boyfriend and I got together after not seeing each other for a couple months, and we had hot sex. The next morning, an angel came in, Gabrielle, and I'm thinking, wow, there must be earth angels as well as heavenly angels.
Right.
So I want to put a plug for that, because people think angels are about religion and spirituality. Well, sexuality is also spiritual.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly. I mean, it definitely is between, people have moral, objections to some of these things that are not, if they're not married or whatever. But, from that standpoint, between a man and a woman, and if you've got that squared away as far as your morality code, of course it is. I mean, that's fine. All I'm saying is that, it's sacred between
a generation of love.
Right.
The angels are all for that, but it was Gabrielle that came through for that. That was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So what were you talking about before I got on that tangent?
Well, what I wanted to ask you is, and I actually it brings it back to the question I wanted to have, and talking about sexuality, and then talking about the femininity. Now, in your book, you're talking about the feminine energy. Now, are you saying that your book is only for females, or is it that we need to really within ourselves, because